Hey y'all, welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Colton here with Brandon. Really big show today. We are going to get into the most important matchups between different decks going into Rumble Online next month. We're going to talk about Bushiroad's English presentation from Monday, where they announced a new release and some more details about Springfest. But first, I want to remind y'all that on Wednesday night, so tomorrow night or potentially today, depending on when you're seeing this, we are going live, a Christmas charity live stream to benefit the Foundation to Decrease World Suck. We are going to be live with Jack from 36 Cancel, Lunchbox from Casually Weiss Schwarz. We're going to hang out, play games. We've got stretch goals we're trying to reach. Should be a good time. Come and join us. Christmas charity live stream Wednesday, December 22nd at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific. Now let's talk about the presentation from Monday, Brandon. Overall, only really two things happened on Monday. They announced that Springfest is going to be in person, and they announced Attack on Titan set number 3. Both of those things, honestly, I think surprised both of us, right? And talking about Springfest first, this feels really aggressive from Bushiroad, right? Like, not to harp on this too much, but like, things are getting worse right now. So it feels interesting that they would announce right now when things, especially like here in the United States, are getting worse, that we're going to be meeting in person in a few months to play card games. I was confused by this.
It felt more like it was just something that was pressured to say. Even then, with that description, they sort of like, hey, we're going to have them in person, but it's going to really dependent on your local area. So if your local area is not open, you're not having it. Again, we're probably not going to find anything about this until much later, post Rumble, presumably before March, but we'll see.
Yeah, one would hope, right? Seeing as how Springfest usually takes place, starting in March and then into April, May. We'll see. And no announcements about format, so we don't know if it's going to be trios or whatever. One would assume, because that's what they've done in the past, but still a lot to be announced. And like you said, could really be dependent on localities, different cities, different states, different countries having different rules, following different guidelines. So we'll see. Cautious enthusiasm from me personally. Like, I'm very excited to be able to play in person again, but we want to do so safely. This is one we're going to be playing by ear over the next few months for sure. The next big announcement, this one also caught us by surprise. People have been talking about the potential for an AOT third set for ages. It did not seem like Bushiroad was going to do it, mostly because it had been so long since the last AOT set release, and they usually don't drop a new set for a product that's this old. So definitely surprised us. And I'm going to be honest, at least for me, it's disappointing.
I think it's interesting. I think it's a really interesting play because it makes sense from a money standpoint, especially since AOT is still very popular and is wrapping up its final season. There's only so much more AOT hype that would happen. So it's kind of like if we were going to do it, now would be the time to do it.
My disappointment with this decision doesn't really stem from the fact that it's AOT the Boogeyman. AOT the Boogeyman is dead because the cards that made AOT a Boogeyman are not relevant anymore. Obero combos do not work in 2021. The Mikasa top end is only okay in 2021. That deck ran no plussing triggers. It was dependent on an on-reverse combo that, its main effect, aside from searching out its event, can be blinked away by almost any current set. So I'm not scared of a return of the old AOT stuff. And if, the next set is good, then fine. Whatever, it's just another good set. I don't think that, just because it's AOT doesn't mean inherently that it's going to be broken on release. My primary concern is this. As it always is, it's with access. Unless they more or less trait lock this third AOT set, people are going to need to get their hands on set 1 and set 2 cards that are quite old, that were quite popular, and are now quite expensive. It's going to be a real kick in the teeth to someone who is, a new player who hears about a new Attack on Titan set and decides to get into it. They buy in, they get their play set or whatever, they start buying boxes and all this stuff, only to realize that, oh, I need the level 1 Armin. I need the level 3 back row in order to play this, at as high of a level as I can. And oh no, those cards are $40, $50 now a piece. And, you may have, 40 to 45 of the cards that you need in this new set, but if a couple of key pieces are still only available from the older sets and those prices get jacked up, and like AOT in particular, we've seen those numbers just skyrocket at times. I think that's a real buzzkill because it means that the only people who get to play AOT are the people who have had AOT for years. My hope is that the set will either be more or less completely trait locked, so that AOT3 is a standalone piece that doesn't pull from sets 1 and 2, which I think, based on the source material, is certainly a thing they could do. Or I'm hoping that along with this, we either get a reprint of sets, or within the new set, we get reprints of old important cards, the same way that we got that Elia in the new Fate set.
I just appreciate that they brought out Attack on Titan just as they're getting events in person back open again. Just that way Riaz could hat trick worlds with Attack on Titan.
Yeah, it's like, people are going to be coming back into Weiss after 2 years. It's like I never left. It's still Attack on Titan. I don't know. We'll see how it turns out. I'm hoping that they don't make it so that it's dependent on older stuff that's hard to get. I'm a fan of seeing new IPs and stuff. Like, I love seeing old stuff get support as long as it's supported in a way that is sustainable and allows new players to jump in and play the sets they want and enjoy them. So I'm cautiously pessimistic on this, I guess, is the way to put it. I don't feel confident that Bushiroad is going to handle this in a way that is conducive to a good experience for everybody. Maybe my pessimism is unfair. Yeah, didn't see this coming. And I guess we'll find out what happens next when we get actual date announcements, of which we got 0 during the latest stream. And I think this is probably the most frustrating thing about the stream. We didn't get a date for Danmachi or Camelot. And given all of the hype in the lead up to this, they're posting on social media about it quite a lot. They were saying words and using phrases in an attempt to try to get people to guess, ooh, what's going to be announced. And then they announced exactly one thing, and the rest of those were just in reference to things that we already knew were happening.
Because they had already announced it in the last stream.
Exactly. If these streams are going to happen every 3 months and we're going to get one set announcement or something every one of these streams, just don't do them. Just post about it. Make a graphic. Now I'm sitting around kind of wasting my time, honestly, is the way that it feels like. And I'm not trying to be super salty at Bushiroad for this, but it's like I'm sitting through a video presentation where, it feels like Bushiroad folks are kind of patting themselves on the back for how, great they're doing at running this game. And then they announce one set and don't give us any release dates. That was the whole stream. And it's been this way the last few streams. Like, it's like we watch it and when it's over, we say, that's it.
Especially for a half-hour video, where you have one announcement in the beginning and one announcement at the end for something I could read in 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's just disappointing. If you're going to have a stream every 3 months, announce more than 1 or 2 things at those streams, please. Like, especially because you kind of teased us with, like, this big show where there were going to be a lot of announcements, and then you proceeded to not even give us dates for things that we already knew were coming out. We're at the point now, if Camelot or Danmachi is next, and it's supposed to come out in June, as of right now, it doesn't look like we're going to know what the release dates on those are until probably March. In summation, the stream was honestly pretty disappointing. So anyway, that was Monday's stream. Let's get into talking about these matchups. Rumble Online is coming up middle of January for Weiss. We will be playing on the final weekend of the event. As of right now, we have kind of isolated 5 decks that we think are both good enough to top an event and also prevalent enough that you're likely to see them. There are other decks that will be around quite a bit, but they're not as good. And there are other decks that can compete at a high level, but you won't see as many of them. This conversation that we're about to have is going to focus in on the matchups that are most likely to occur at Rumble between players that are pushing for top 8.
Notably, with this process, we've selected 5 different titles, and of those titles, we chose 1 deck each. At the end, we're going to kind of talk about some of the other different potential builds with some of those sets, but just wanted to highlight up front 5 different sets, 1 deck each.
So if you're looking for conversation about some of the other decks that are going to be relevant for Rumble, such as like Bovary or new releases such as Ruby or something like Adventure Time, we're going to be talking about those in 2 weeks in a separate video. This video is about the matchups between these 5 decks that are kind of the most relevant in the meta at this juncture, how they play into each other. So people seemed to like this last time we did it for Springfest, so we decided to run it back. Let's get into it. These are the 5 decks. Data Live 8 Standby, Sword Art Pants Choice, Slime Standby, Love Live Sunshine, and Kaguya Standby Salvage. So real quick before we get started on the matchups, here's what each of these 5 decks kind of do, and we will start with Data Live 8 Standby. 8 Standby Data Live is mostly focused on getting its board state to where it wants, triggering standby triggers, playing them out of hand as much as possible to get big 1/1s and 2/2s on board so that it can control the board in the mid game. It has a scry engine that allows it to, when it gets reverses on defense, to top check and move cards from top to bottom of waiting room, or rearrange the top 2 cards of its deck so that it can mitigate as much damage as possible. The top end on standby, basically you have 3 different options. You can either stock swap your opponent, shuffle back 3 cards from their waiting room into their deck, or pitch 2 to burn 3. It also has a 1/1 bomb that can run in front of an early play and bomb it to bottom deck.
For Kaguya, kind of looking at the combo pieces itself, you have the 1/0 that allows you to marker a card, and then when you get a reverse, pay out the marker to search your deck for a character. You have the drop search that resonates with level 3 to be able to deal additional damage. It also bounces back to hand on climax play, so you can continue to use that throughout the game, help continually build an advantage that way, getting the cards you need whenever you need it. The level 3 on play heal, you have with the combo has a on attack pay 1 burn. It also has a resonate ability with this drop search to be able to resonate, discard a card to burn 1. So you have 2 different instances of burning on the top end, as well as the additional attack. One of the other key pieces for this deck really comes in to play here is going to be this Miyuki. It's an early play, gains 4,500 power. Your opponent can't play backups against it, so it's very hard to defend against. It also has pay 2, discard 1 on reverse clock kick, so when you reverse something with that card, you can clock kick your opponent's card. So it allows you to be able to deal with some troublesome cards and maintain a significant board presence in that mid game.
Love Live Sunshine, yes, it's still around, and it's the same deck that it has always been. The object is to get the early play burn engine down. The Chica brings the Yo into play, and the Yo burns equal to the level of the top card of your deck, which you mill on attack. That's what it does. It doesn't have like a level 3 combo per se. It usually runs a level 1 combo that features level 1 bombs, but it typically runs an empty salvage, and that level 1 combo is on a stock soul.
We also have Slime 8 Standby, using the level 1 Rimuru combo to continually build stock, pairing that with the 2/2 Geld to help try to maintain a board presence, being able to send that to waiting room for a 4k power boost to anywhere on field. Combining that with the 3/2 Benimaru that grants power alongside the 3/2 Milam that allows you to be able to combo again with Standby when you're hitting direct lanes, pay 2 to burn 2, or if you're facing a character, you get that reverse, pay 2 to play the event, the Drago Buster, where you're able to look at the top 7 cards of your opponent's deck, number the number of climaxes in that, shuffle that back in, then put cards from the top of the deck into clock, equaling the number of climaxes revealed in those 7 cards. It does not count as damage, so that is guaranteed to stick into clock.
And then finally, we've got Sword Art Pants Choice. Level 1 Pants combo on attack. If you have experience level 2 or higher, you can choose a character in your waiting room, return it to hand. The level 3 combo is a pay 2, pitch 2 if there's a certain level 0 in memory. You can mill 11 from your own deck and deal 1 to your opponent for each climax among those cards as an individual point of damage. Because of the experience condition on the level 1 combo, it plays a lot of level 3s, plays a lot of soul triggers, a lot of healing. Basically the platonic ideal of the level 1 combo into the level 3 combo, all on, 1000 power, 1 soul climaxes. All right, so with those out of the way, let's get into the actual matchups, and we're going to start by talking about Dal. 8 standby Data Live taking on Kaguya. So Data Live's game plan doesn't really change no matter what its matchup is, right? It's going to slam as many standbys as it can, try to trigger standby as much as possible, try to get its 1/1s, 2/2s down, try to dominate board. Against Kaguya, same kind of thing. You don't want Kaguya to get to level 1 early, because then its level 1 combo can actually get reverses on you. You deny those reverses by, on the first couple of turns, swinging once, trying not to push them into 1, and giving them only 1 reverse target. Even if they do get to 1, give them as little of an outlet as possible. You can get big bodies on board as long as you have, like the Brainstormer and the back row Toka can give power to things. The 2/2 Toka is obviously like the ideal target to have down if you're putting down standbys at level 1. If you can put enough power onto the 1/1 and play the backup, then you can win lanes with that as well. But realistically, early part of the mid game, trying to get as much board presence as possible, just trying to get big enough so that you can deny the combo. And then once you are a little later on into the mid game, getting the Yoshino on board that you can then move to either bomb its early play Miyuki with the clock kick, or just use it to move 2/2s into place to deny the combo. It's all about board for Dal, always has been, always will be. It can win board here to get its scry engine together, to get its top check together, so that it just doesn't eat damage. This honestly is a good matchup for Data Live, just because of how much it can dominate this board.
And on the flip side, that changes when Kaguya gets to level 1 first a little bit. You're able to target a little bit more easier reverses, assuming there's characters on field. You're able to start building up your big walls sooner, so you can have those walls challenging Data Live's walls. You get power throughout the game from various means, whether the drop search or through the back row assists and whatnot. So you have a little bit of that power boost to be able to attempt to win those lanes on both offense and defense. Bringing in that Miyuki to try to solidify a lane to gain kind of that control and access over that board presence over Dal, and using all that power to just kind of try to steamroll your way into victory. Looking at Dal versus SAO.
Yeah, so again, similar story here, right? Sword Art and Kaguya are similar, honestly, in a lot of ways. They both play these really small level 1 boards that can get bodied pretty easily by Dal's mid game. So in the same way as you did in the Kaguya matchup, you don't want to let Sword Art get to level 1 first if you can help it, just so they can't get their combo down and get reverses with their combo. They don't need reverses for their combo, unlike Kaguya, but you would rather them not get that additional plus of being able to keep their Kiratos on board if you can help it. Really easy to deny these with 1/1s because they just don't get big. So any additional power that you can throw on the 1/1s, any backups that you have on the 1/1s, can basically just completely shut out Sword Art's advantage engine with its combo. Basically, it's going to trade its onboard combo for a salvage and allow you as the Dal player to continue to dominate board, continue to hit your standbys. It just doesn't have a response to Dal's power basically at any level of the board. And you can continue to just keep getting reverses on defense, keep, scrying away potential clean damage, and just daring Sword Art to hit you.
On the flip side, looking at SAO into Dal, Hitting level 1 first is actually going to be pretty helpful here, because that way you can get your combo in place, get the resources that you need from the combo, and then use that combo for defense, really, to help negate some of that soul coming your way. Dal can't push soul. Being able to push damage with climaxes to help keep pace with Dal, to help keep the game moving forward, especially with the ability to essentially recoup this level 1 combo relatively effectively with different pieces, whether the Bonder, whether the Pants Assist with the Yu-Gi-Oh! A couple different opportunities to be able to continue to bring that combo out to maintain resources into the late game, where then the late game Asuda can finish your opponent through instances of burn ones, kind of pushing through that top deck compression to be able to close out the game.
Slime Standby is where Data Live has its most difficult matchup, I think, perhaps in this entire tournament. Slime can go toe-to-toe with Dal on board in a way that basically no other deck really can right now. And that's why it's so important that the Dal player in this matchup gets as much of their stuff down early as possible. Hit as many standby triggers as they can, get those into hand using that level 0 Toka, just play them over and over again. Because whoever wins the board in the middle of the game probably wins the game. Dal does have one huge advantage in this matchup, and that's the 1/1 Yoshino Bomb that it can use to deal with some of Slime's threats, especially like the 2/2 Geld, can get it off board on defense and open up a lane to try to reclaim some of that board and deny the Slime player their basically on board 4,000 power backup. That's probably the thing that tips this matchup slightly in Dal's favor, but both decks have explosive top ends. Both decks have big 2/2s that they can get on board and keep there. The best case scenario for Dal, honestly, get those 2/2s down as quickly as possible. Try to get that Rimuru combo reversed. Try to make sure that it's not winning lanes whenever possible, just to gain early board advantage.
I think this matchup is going to be the longest matchup in the game, because they're both really defensive decks trying to play defensively. Slime has some really interesting things here, because Slime has, especially as it gets later into the game, the Benimaru being able to pump power to the full field, and having multiple Benimarus on field really begins to help tip the favor in some way. But at the same time, Geld being able to put 4,000 power anywhere also begins to make a big difference here too. So it's like both decks are playing defensively with that in mind. Both Slime and Data Live are trying to get to level 1 first. Slime, especially if Slime can get level 1 first here, they can push Data Live into 1 and then have their board ready to go. So when Data Live hits 1, they already have to face off against Geld. So the race here is to who can get to level 1 first. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Love Live Sunshine. This is going to be one of the more awkward matchups for Data Live, I think, just because Sunshine can push so much damage. Obviously, you want to lock it out at level 2. Don't let it get to level 2. Don't let it get its Chica-Yo engine down on board. The 1/1 Yoshino can be moved up to bottom deck the Yo, which takes power away from the Chica and helps Dal keep its board in the middle of the game. But this is definitely one of those things where Love Live does one thing, right? Sunshine does its Chica-Yo stuff, keeping that off the board as long as possible and trying to respond to it with the Yoshino whenever you can is going to be what's most important here. Also worth noting, most Sunshine decks do play that level 1 combo on a bomb, and it is a level bomb. So that combo can bomb the 1/1 Kurumis off board, forcing the Dal player to either pay out of hand to encore them or to replace them somehow. So that's worth paying attention to. Like, if you are playing Data Live and you're running into Love Live Sunshine, just know that Sunshine is perfectly happy to just crash its board and kill all of your stuff.
Yeah, because it's a bigger detriment to Dal than it is to Love Live at that point. Love Live responds by trying to dominate the board. That's really how it is, right? Chica-Yo, that's classic moves. We don't have to really go into that. They're just trying to keep that burn engine going, trying to burn as much as possible and much as often, just so you can continue to take that damage. With that power pump, you can quickly begin to reach levels that Dal has a more difficult time to reach. And especially if you can get to level 2 first with Chica-Yo in play, ready to go, you can kind of set up a board state that makes it very difficult for Dal to answer, especially if you're able to attack all lanes. Looking at Kaguya playing into SAO, realistically, Kaguya has a lot of opportunity against SAO. Kaguya is going to be able to get those reverses at any point in the game, so you're able to push SAO with damage, so that way you can just kind of play in the extra game, just generate the resources that you get for being big.
Sword Art is going to lose board at almost every level in this matchup. It's basically playing for its level 3 game. You can win games with the level 3 game in Sword Art. That Asana combo is really powerful. Pay 2, pitch 2 for multiple instances of individual burn ones. It's fantastic. It wins games. However, when you're playing into Kaguya, you might have lost the game by the time you get to that point, honestly, if you're playing Sword Art, because you're just going to be so dominated on board. You're going to struggle to get resources. So, getting to level 1 first is really important, just so you don't lose your combo on board when you start attacking into things. That level 1 Kaguya combo is also reversible, because it doesn't sit at too much power. So, worst case scenario, you can still get over that. But again, it's on standby. So every turn you wait to get your combo down is another turn that Kaguya can hit or play a standby to get something big on board. So trying to get to level 1 first, trying to build as much in hand as possible so that you can deal with the fact that you're going to be losing a lot of board and still get your combo together at the end of the game.
Looking at Kaguya versus Standby Slime, Standby Slime is really a game of resource management. Your power thresholds beat the normal thresholds, so they have to force the Geld out to be able to win board. So at the same time, you're kind of playing into the standby board with the power thresholds to be able to step over just about every lane, forcing them to make decisions. What do they save? What do they lose? So you're constantly draining resources from them in order to help keep board in some way. Using that and forcing that to have them try to answer you in some way, I think is the way to go. Burn out their resources. They have no resources for the end game to be able to get their decently expensive top end off. Play the Miyuki, force that clock kick potential, force them to try to play Geld around it.
The primary advantage of playing into Kaguya is that Kaguya does need a level 1 reverse for its combo, which is something that something like Slime Standby can deny. If you can get to level 1 first, which is becoming a theme here, if you can get to level 1 first, using your Riki to do so, and you can get a couple copies of your Rimuru combo down in the front row, standby in a 2-2, standby in your first Geld, and then rip triggers. Because the whole point of this combo is that you're twin driving with each of these Rimurus, right? So if you can get to level 1 first, you can get your first Geld down, you can trigger out another Geld over one of your Rimuru combos. Now you're in business, right? Now you're in a place where it's going to be hard for them to get Kaguya combos off. And now you've suddenly dominated 2/3 of the board with these big guys that you can then sack to pump up something else to deny any reverses on board. And you can pay 3 encore one of those back because you got all that extra stock because of the twin driving. That's what you're after here. Try to dominate board, keep Kaguya from getting its level 1 combo off. And as long as you can, keep hitting standbys, you're running 8 triggers, get Benimaru's down, keep your board nice and big, you can contest things like the Miyuki. You can contest a lot of what's going on Kaguya's board, and then at the end of the game, you have a combo that can close.
Looking at Kaguya into Love Live Sunshine, very similar strategy as what's been before. You want to get to level 1 first. Level 1 first, get your combo off, get your resources in play. So that way you can kind of bring out those standbys, bring out the early plays, get big. Once you're big, you can contest with some of those bigger pieces that Love Live has to bring out, especially with Miyuki. Miyuki presents a difficult challenge to be able to face, as well as being able to potentially put characters into difficult zones for Love Live to deal with. Win board, keep control of board to close out the game.
Like we said earlier, most Sunshine decks run that Stocksoul Bomb combo. So both combos need reverses. In a situation like this, obviously you want to get to level 1 first, right? Like that's just how it goes. You want to get to level 1 first, but it's not a good situation for Sunshine because kind of no matter what happens, as long as Kaguya has its combo on board, in order for you to get your plus, you need to give Kaguya theirs. Get to level 2, get Shikayo down. You can contest the Miyuki on board to a certain extent, but you can also get clock kicked kind of into oblivion. So you don't necessarily want to have your stuff on board before the Miyuki comes down. Try to hold off on it as long as possible, but at the end of the day, Sunshine does what Sunshine does. You got to get your stuff down, you got to get your burns off. Only a few left. Next, Sword Art Choice Pants versus Slime Standby. This is, quite frankly, not a good matchup for Sword Art. It really struggles in the mid game here because if Standby gets to level 1 first, it can really start to build a board that Sword Art can't do anything about. So, again, same strategy as before. It's got to try to get to level 1 first if it can. Get its reverses off at level 1. Take board. Get every resource it can into hand. And then from there, basically it's just about resource building. It's going to lose board. It does have the early plays. They do heal, but they're expensive to get down. So if you're Sword Art, you're more interested in trying to heal with those than you are trying to, keep getting them down in order to try to win a big board, which you're honestly just not going to be able to do. They can get their Gelds down faster than you can get your early plays down. So it's a losing battle trying to win board if you're Sword Art. Best you can try to do is get a cheap reverse where you can by loading up one of those early plays with as much power as you can. But other than that, get as many instances of the level 1 combo as possible just for the sake of gaining resources so that ultimately that end goal, that level 3 combo, can come down and actually close for you.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I think you hit it pretty well on the head right there. Hitting level 1 first, been in the name of the game this whole matchup season, because it really sets the stage of what the rest of the game looks like.
Well, hitting level 1 used to be something that was more easily done in a lot of decks just because they had things like the Shiro Encore and, so stuff like that would allow you to get to level 1 first. Now, it's really, you almost have to bait your opponent into pushing you.
It also helped that you could typically go back and forth. There's a lot more back and forth opportunity after you hit 1. So some decks, it didn't matter who hit 1 first because you could respond just as evenly. And just as evenly because you were pretty well in the same boat of what you were doing. Especially with such a heavy standby focused meta, hitting level 1 first makes a big deal because that's usually who can set up the biggest board first. And then that big board is pretty well maintained throughout the game. And that's really what's going on here in this instance. Slime wants to hit level 1 first to set up their board to essentially get big, stay big, and drain SAO's resources.
Sword Art does have an easier time in the Love Live Sunshine matchup just because Love Live doesn't get massive on board in the middle of the game as much, but it still doesn't feel great to swing into a bomb. So if Sunshine gets there first and can get their combo down while Sword Art still has those tiny zeros on board, it means that as the Sword Art player, you have to swing into bombs, which means you have to side, or you have to obviously crash into those bombs, neither of which are ideal. So again, getting to level 1 first is what you want if you're Sword Art, and if you don't, you will probably be losing the resource battle mid-game. As far as dealing with the Chika Yo stuff, it kind of just doesn't. You have to just try to beat it on board as much as possible and make Sunshine keep it on board with the Kanan or pay 2 to get another one down. That's really what you have to do. And again, endgame combo, it can close. So you're crutching really hard on making sure you get that combo. So looping level 1s where you can, getting as many instances of that combo off as you can, and trying not to get completely run over by the Yoburns.
Love Life hitting 1 makes a little bit more sense first, but I don't think it's as important as it is for a lot of these other decks. Because at level 2, Chika Yo, burn, 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 done. That's what it does. I think it can outperform Sword Art here in this instance.
And then finally, last matchup, Love Live Sunshine playing into 8 Standby Slime. This is an interesting matchup because these are two decks that have very different sets of strengths. It's not unlike when Sunshine plays into Data Live, right? But the big difference, I think, is that 8 Standby Slime doesn't have the Yoshino Bomb. So Sunshine can afford to get a little bit more greedy because it's harder for Slime to deal with these, massive Chicas and Yos on board. It can, because the Gelds do allow one another to get over another lane, but for Sunshine, you can bomb away anything at level 1 because that's what your combo does. And you can usually win board at level 2 because Chica and Yo are usually big enough, have that back row support. So if you can get to level 1 first, if you're Sunshine, that's great because it will force your opponent to crash with whatever Rimuru's it swings with, because that Rimuru literally cannot side attack. So that's probably the best way to generate advantage if you're Sunshine, because you force the Rimurus to crash, and especially if those Rimurus don't trigger and they don't get that advantage from, getting multiple standby targets out, you can actually really start to dominate board, especially like if you get pushed into level 2 by that combo. You're in a place where you can really do something. Slime cannot control what level it's pushing Sunshine to as well with that level 1 combo because it can't side attack. So if you're Sunshine, you can make the most of that. If that board is open because of the bombs that you laid down defensively, you can start getting your Chica Yo combo down, start claiming that board a bit more, and forcing Standby to be the aggressor into your established board.
Getting to level 1 first actually, I think, makes a slight difference and a slight edge here for Love Live because it's a level bomb. So when Slime brings out their Rimuru combo, they're going to go forth, they have to front attack, so they're going to get reversed by the bomb. This allows you to kind of try to clear lanes as you're going and allow you to have open lanes to swing into on that follow-up turn. It helps prevent Geld from kind of going off in multiple lanes because you're trying to clear out those multiple lanes ahead of time. Notably, on the comeback turn, you can still kind of mess with it a little bit because they're levels, right? Geld, well, it grants power, doesn't change the level of the card. So you could still take out the level ones that way. But if you're able to proactively take them out on its turn, it allows you to kind of help push a little bit more on your turn in a little bit, so you can try to get as much benefit out of that as you can.
And as is always the case with Sunshine, one of the dangers of playing into it is that they get essentially their end game combo down so early, and it allows them to really try to reach to close games. They play a lot of soul triggers. They're likely to burn 2 or 3 with the Yo, and that's, for obvious reasons, really dangerous. It makes it so that Sunshine can reach really high damage thresholds that other decks can't at level 2. So Sunshine can snipe wins from deep in a way that other decks can't. And I think that especially in this matchup, where it's hard to get your level 3 combo stuff down early, even with standby in this list, in a way that's, effective and meaningful. For Sunshine, this is an opportunity to win a game without even having to deal with an opponent's level 3 combo, potentially.
The other side of this coin is that Slime is powerful defensively, but it doesn't have as much power offensively, especially early. Chica Yo, with the Yo burns, you could potentially side attack a lane, get the burn off in that lane, and so you're still having 3 instances of damage per turn without having to face off against Geld, kind of almost in a sense negating Geld to continue to push Slime forward, and potentially not even giving Geld the opportunity to pay out climaxes and such if you're not frontal attacking. You can kind of push Slime into an interesting corner with unique plays that Sunshine can pull off that other decks will have a much harder time doing.
And also worth noting, Slime's level 3 combo's power threshold isn't super high. So if you've, got your board down as the Sunshine player, you can have a board that is potentially big enough with backup to deny that level 3 combo from going off because it needs that reverse. It needs either the reverse or the open lane. And if you can kind of withstand the Gelds, right? If you can get down before the Gelds come down, and you can give the Gelds a hard time staying on board themselves so that they can't really pop off and do their backup stuff to, make your board less powerful, you could put yourself in a situation where it's really tough for the slime player to get either part of their level 3 combo together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so those are the kind of nutshell capsule looks at some of the key matchups between the most relevant decks going into Rumble. As we said at the top, we only chose one deck from each set that we thought was going to be the most prevalent, most important, potentially the most competitive. There are obviously, as with almost every Weiss set, lots of different ways to build it, but unlike most other Weiss sets, these sets actually have multiple meta relevant builds, most of them. Slime has some, Dal has some, Sword Art has some. There are multiple different ways to build these sets, as much as we think these are the best ones. And I think that the general consensus is that the ones that we've talked about are the ones most likely to make some noise. There are plenty of other options if you're going to play with these sets. And I think the most obvious one is Dal with the new data bullet stuff, Brandon.
Even reflecting back just to the original set, Choice Standby, that was a big and heavy prevalent part in Springfest. Having additional pieces to help play in with that, especially with Yellow with Kermie, as well as 8 Choice, having that Choice top end from Data Bullet. Different potentials of being able to see some of these powerful cards. Looking at Sword Art has so many sets out that there is so much potential with how you could build Sword Art in what that looks like.
And back in Springfest, we saw that, right? Like the last shot build performed pretty well. So even the old Sword Art stuff is perfectly capable. And in the new stuff, there's the pants top end that has the icy tail attached to it. I think most people prefer the choice top end, but the pants top end basically plays the same kind of engine, very similar through the same level 1 combo, just into a blue top end. So with Sword Art, there are options, and if you're playing into Sword Art, you don't, see what your opponent is playing and then immediately know what deck they've got. You've got to pay attention to what flows into their waiting room, see what their combos are, see what their triggers are, because Sword Art has a lot of different things that it can do. So that's something obviously worth paying attention to. Same kind of thing with Slime. Slime, even in the new set, has a couple different things that can be run. The 8 choice list has a pretty decent level 1 combo, but the level 3 combo allows it to essentially restand itself over and over and over again by replacing itself on board. It can be hard countered a couple of ways, but that being said, it's still pretty powerful if allowed to go off. And of course, the old slime stuff will still exist. We'll probably have the pants salvage, the big 3/2 Shizus that get on board, try to hold board, and just continue that heal loop, and the Milim stuff that can try to close. So a lot of stuff in slime as well to be looking out for as we get into Rumble. And of course, there's also the possibility that Love Life Sunshine plays something other than the bomb stock soul combo at level 1. Some people have started to play 2 souls. You're going to see the stock soul combo more than you see the 2 soul, but the 2 soul changes what you do defensively a little bit, just because you're going to be, dealing with bigger swings. You're not going to be swinging into bombs, which maybe changes what you're doing if you're playing something like a Sword Art where, you're a level 1 that is over the threshold, but, still subject to getting bombed. So, again, worth paying attention to what triggers are being played, know what the combos do, recognize the potential variance in all of these different sets. We will have links in the description to decks that are kind of the ideal or, kind of the prototype for the main 5 that we discussed in this video. But obviously a lot that needs to be paid attention to. And of course, there are more than 5 sets, right? Like, there are plenty of competitive, interesting sets out there that maybe are not on this tier of relevance, but are on the next tier or the tier further down that we're going to have to deal with, especially in Swiss. You never know what you're going to get in Swiss. And I think in particular, there are a couple of decks here that have the potential to really struggle in Swiss. Something like Kaguya is subject to some of the tricks that some other decks might have up their sleeve, just because it's like dependent on that level 1 reverse combo. Stuff that doesn't have Blink or doesn't really use Blink in its list is going to be a lot more subject to stuff that builds walls, gets big, soul walls in particular. Still relevant if you're playing something that doesn't have Blink looking at you, Kaguya. And of course, that's just how talking about the meta goes, right? There's stuff that beats other stuff. Everything has a bad matchup, except for Dal. And everything has the potential to lose in Swiss and not even make it out. We're going to talk at length about those other sets next time in 2 weeks with our big Rumble preview. This was just the matchup show, talking about how the best or most relevant decks play into each other. 2 weeks from now, we will have a more complete preview of all of the sets that are likely to be played at Rumble and what their competitive outlook is. In the meantime, don't forget we are doing the charity live stream Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern. Us, Lunchbox, Jack from 36 Cancel. Going to be a lot of fun. Please join us as we raise money for the foundation to decrease World Suck. On Thursday, we'll have 5 cards, 5 minutes. We'll be back with Data Bullet. Following Tuesday, I will have a deck tech gameplay for that the following Thursday. And then, of course, in 2 weeks, the big Rumble preview show where we're going to talk about all of the important sets going into Rumble. Until then, thank you so much for joining us. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one.
We'll see you then.